The People First podcast is a show presented by people with learning disabilities for our friends and community. We talk about issues that are important to us and interview interesting people to find out new information. This is our way to make a difference and have our voices heard.
Hello and welcome to the People First podcast. Today we are interviewing Joe, who is the Chief Officer at BTM. Joe was also a big part of a start of People First and the Out There Club. So we wanted to ask her some questions about that and about her work at the BTM. Welcome, Joe. Thanks so much for coming in today.
Thank you for inviting me.
What is Bradford Talking Media and when and how did it start?
Okay, hi. BTM is short for Bradford Talking Media, and it started way back in 1982, a long time ago, probably before some of you guys were born. It was started by a lady called Sue Crow, who some of you may remember, and she actually retired from BTM a couple of years ago, so she'd worked for over 40 years with BTM. It was part of the Cathedral Centre originally, and then as it became bigger and bigger, in 2011, BTM bought its own building on Eldon Place in Bradford. So that's really how it all started.
What is your job at BTM? What do you do?
Thanks, Shannon. So my job at BTM now is Chief Officer. So that's like the manager, really. So it means that I oversee everything that BTM does. So including all the work we have to do, all our contracts we have to deliver on. And I also look after the building because we own our own building, look after our money, make sure we've got enough money, that sort of thing. But I've worked at BTM for about 11 years now, and I started off as a project worker. So I went in and I ran a lottery-funded project, and then just over the years I've changed jobs. So from being a project worker, I then became the administrator and worked very closely with Sue to run the organisation. And then when Sue retired 2 years ago, I interviewed and got offered for the role of Chief Officer. So I do a little bit of everything, really. As a small organisation like People First is, you often have to do all sorts of different things. So sometimes I help out with running groups, or I help out with easy read information. I record some audio, so all sorts of bits and pieces.
What kind of services do you offer? You are that or
who are they for?
Oh, therefore.
Hi, well, we offer all sorts of services, but what we do, we make information easy to understand for everybody. So we make information in easy read, British Sign Language and audio. So we sometimes work alongside the council if they have big reports or information that they need to make easy read. And British Sign Language for the deaf community, and also audio for people that are visually impaired. We also run lots of different work groups because all our work is co-produced. So that means that we work with the people who need the information. So we have a couple of learning disability groups, we have a couple of deaf groups, and we also have some mental health service users come in and help us with our work to co-produce. So all sorts of things, really.
How do People First in Craven and BTM work together?
So People First and BTM have always worked together, I think. We have a history of working together. I think lots of your members come to BTM and lots of BTM members come to People First and vice versa. So we also work very closely with Bradford People First and Equality together. And I know a project that all four organisations work on is called Our Lives, Our Way, which supports people with disabilities to literally go and live their life their way. So it has lots of different parts, and the part that BTM does is the trips and travel group. We also work together because we want everybody to be able to access information. And even though we have work groups that co-produce, because some of them have been doing it so long, they become quite familiar with language and understanding. So we like to get other people to look at our information as well to make sure it's fit for purpose. We really think that we're all there to do the same thing, and that's support people to live good lives. So, yeah, I think working together is really important, and to continue to do that in the future as well.
You were part of the early days of PFKC. What was the Out There Club, and when did it start?
So, well, Jane, this is going back a lot of years now, so testing my memory. So the Out There Club was a social group that was started because James Brown and some other people, including you, Jane, you wanted something different to do in the evenings, like you wanted to go bowling on your own without having to go with a big group of people, or James just wanted to go to the pub for a drink. So you worked with somebody called Dawn Nouch, and put together a group that just used to meet every other Thursday, I believe at the Albert Pub in Keighley.
How did Dawn get the funding, and how did she become a volunteer for Out There Club?
Okay, so I know a little bit of this. I didn't work for the Out There Club when Dawn got the funding, but I was a friend of Dawn's, so I might be able to answer this a little bit. So I believe Dawn worked for Keighley Voluntary Services, and that's how she became involved with the Out There Club. And she, along with you guys, applied for some funding from Comic Relief, and I think then you got enough money to rent some office space. So when I first started at the Out There Club, I used to work on a Thursday and Friday morning in a tiny little office in Scott Street, and I think there were just maybe 4 or 5 of us in the office. So there was you, Jane, Sarah Clapperton, James Brown. So yeah, so I'm not sure how Dawn actually became a volunteer, but I think it was through Keighley Voluntary Services.
What did we do in our first planning meeting at the Albert Pub?
So I wasn't actually around when you used to meet at the Albert Pub, Jane. I think I came along about a year later, and we used to meet at Wetherspoons in Keighley. So we used to have a big hardback book that you used to write in, Jane, because you were the secretary. And then you used to type the minutes up afterwards. So we used to sit down and we'd come up with suggestions of where people wanted to go, and it's probably very much like you still do now, except I'm sure you don't write in a book anymore. Technology's taken off a bit since then. So we used to sit around, we'd have an hour, we used to chat and catch up, and then people would make suggestions. So the cinema, curry at the Balti House, which I know you still do. Bingley Pub Crawl was always a big favourite social night. And then we'd vote, and whichever got the most votes would win, and that was the trip that we'd go and do 2 weeks later on a Thursday.
Do you have any memories about the start, about People First Keighley and Craven?
I do actually, yes. So the Out There Club had to work very hard to become a People First organisation. There were certain things that you had to be doing so you could take on the People First name. So I think we had to prove that we were a self-advocacy group and that we would speak up for ourselves and other people with learning disabilities. So some of us went to London to meet with National People First. That was a good fun trip. And then we had lots of visits from a man called Raymond, who was a self-advocate from National People First based in London. And he used to come up and check what we were doing to make sure that we could get sort of People First status. I think Raymond's still around. He became a bit famous sometimes, didn't he, Jane? He was on a TV show called The Undateables. I don't know whether anybody remembers. So he was a really nice guy. So we then had to have a big conference, and I think it was it at the Sangat Centre, I think, Jane?
Yes.
And we had a presentation from a lady called Olivia Butterworth, who worked at Keighley Voluntary Services, and she really supported the Out There Club to become a People First and did a lot of work with us. She also used to do our supervision. Olivia's still around and might be a really good person to invite on the podcast if you could get hold of her. So yeah, we had a really good night. Raymond came from London. It it was really good fun. And then at the end, he said, yes, I agree, you can become a People First organisation. Then we had a bit of work involved, having to change sort of legal things. And we also became a registered charity as well at that point.
What was your job role at People First Keighley Craven?
So my job was a support worker, so I supported the members to run their office. So at first, like I said before, I just used to work 2 mornings a week, and then as we grew bigger and got more funding, I started to work more hours and we got more work. So I'd support Jane to type up the minutes of meetings or support other people to do their work.
Do you have any memorable brothers or just projects at PKC?
Thanks, Daniel. I think I've got many memorable moments, and we'd probably be here all day if I went through all of them. But I think some of the really good things were becoming a People First and becoming a charity, because there was really a lot of hard work from the members to do that. And it was really good. It was quite difficult for everybody to get their heads around, but everyone worked really hard. Many brilliant social nights that I supported people on. Trips to London and other places, and summer balls that we used to have. I'm not sure whether they still happen, but I remember we had the first summer ball at Bradford and Bingley Rugby Club a long time ago. The summer schemes we used to go on, which were quite hard to organise, but always really good fun. We had lots of trips to Lightwater Valley, the seaside, all sorts of places, so they were good. Yeah. So just everything. I loved working at People First, and I still really love being involved with People First. And the only reason I left was my kids got older and I was looking for a full-time job. And at the time, People First didn't have that opportunity for me. But I still love being in touch with everybody and working with you guys now. And thank you very much for inviting me on your podcast.
I just thought I'd ask something based on what you've explained, Joe. How did it feel to you all going down to London that very first time?
It was really exciting, actually. We went down on the train. It was quite a lot of travelling, and I think there was me, Dawn, James Brown, and a lady called Lynn Williams went. I mean, this is going back a long time now, Luke, so you're testing my memory. But yeah, it was really good fun. And going into the big national People First,
Wow.
It was huge because they had so many more members than we did. And one thing I remember particularly was, because we got up so early, by the time we got there, we were absolutely starving hungry.
Oh.
And they had a buffet for us, but there was a really long queue, and we were like, we need to eat. And they let us go to the front of the queue. It was lovely. But yeah, it was a very...
Yeah, it must have been a very nice atmosphere. It really must.
It was great to meet self-advocates from a different area and really start to feel part of the bigger picture.
That's all our questions today. Thank you again to Joe for coming and speaking to us. We think it's important to learn about and support after other organisation in Yorkshire, and we hope BTM continue to do tell its well, also too interested about the for People First Keighley and Craven. Do you have anything else you went to before we end the show?
Thank you. I don't think I've got anything else to add. Just thank you for inviting me once again, and I've really enjoyed talking about the early days of People First, and I'm just really happy that it's grown even bigger and is still carrying on today. Thank you.
Remember to comment, like, share on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter. You can find us by searching for the People First podcast. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.